Last year, I made a video breaking down exactly what I would do if I needed to lose 30 pounds fast. That video now has more than 1.5 million views, and it worked. I've seen those strategies work for thousands of my patients, hundreds of thousands of people inside of our challenges and online. And I still use those principles myself. But this year, I'm gonna go even deeper. I'm sharing the pieces most people never hear about, the fat loss levers that actually decide whether the weight comes off and whether it stays off. And it all starts with one organ that almost no one talks about when it comes to fat loss, and that is your liver. It's the hardest working organ in your body. It performs over 500 different functions every single day, regulating blood sugar, processing hormones, filters out toxins out of your bloodstream. But when it comes to fat loss, there's one role that matters more than almost anything else. Your liver is the only organ that decides whether the calories you eat get burned or stored as fat. Every time you eat, your liver acts like a traffic controller. It decides what nutrients get used right away for energy, what gets stored for later, and what has to be detoxed and removed from your body. In a healthy system, it works beautifully. Sugar gets used, fat gets burned, toxins get filtered out, hormones stay balanced enough for fat loss to happen naturally. But that's not how people's bodies work today. Not because they're eating too much food, but because we're living in a world with an overwhelming toxic load. Processed foods, industrial oils, added sugars, alcohol, medications, plastics, environmental chemicals, household products, all of those toxins have to be processed somewhere, and almost all of it ends up in your liver. Over time, that constant exposure starts to slow it down. And when the liver gets overloaded and overwhelmed, it stops everything it's doing to focus on detoxification. So as a result, fat burning gets pushed to the back of the line. And instead of breaking fat down efficiently, your body starts storing it, especially around the belly. This is also how non-alcoholic fatty liver develops. It comes from years of excess sugar, toxic oils, chemicals, constant metabolic stress. Stress the liver can't keep up with. It's now one of the fastest growing conditions in the world. Tens of millions of people have it. Most don't even know they have it. And that's because the liver doesn't hurt when it's struggling. It doesn't send pain signals. It doesn't give obvious warning signs. It just stops doing certain jobs as well as it used to. You start feeling like you have less energy each day. Blood sugar starts to become a problem, and fat won't come off no matter how clean you eat or how hard you exercise. And until you address this, everything else you try for fat loss becomes an uphill battle. Now that you understand how much control your liver has over fat loss, there's an important order of operations that we need to follow. You don't start by trying to repair the liver. You start by stopping the things that are damaging it, because as long as the liver is under constant attack, it stays in survival mode. This is where most people get stuck. And just adding some supplements or just try fasting or just exercise harder, but they never remove the toxic interference that's keeping the liver overwhelmed in the first place. And most of that interference comes from what you put in your mouth every single day. Over the years, working with patients and watching what actually moves the needle, a very clear pattern shows up. The foods that block fat loss fall into just a few repeatable categories. These categories show up no matter what diet someone follows. Low carb, low fat, plant-based, keto, even so-called clean eating. You can be in a caloric deficit and still be eating these foods. You can hit your macros perfectly and still be eating these foods. And as long as they are present, the fat won't budge. So the first step is identifying what you're eating that's blocking your liver and blocking fat loss. I've simplified it into a rememberable framework I call CRAP. Once these CRAP foods are identified and removed, the liver finally has space to do its job again. And that's when the fat loss starts working the way that it's supposed to. So what does CRAP stand for? The C stands for refined carbohydrates and added sugars. This is usually the category doing the most damage to the liver the fastest. As you probably already know, when you eat sugar or refined carbs, your blood sugar rises. That rise triggers insulin. And insulin is not a fat-burning hormone. Insulin is a storage hormone. When insulin is elevated, fat burning is turned off. So if insulin stays high throughout the day, your body can't access stored fat, no matter how few calories you eat, no matter how much you exercise. That part is familiar to most people. What's less talked about is what this does to your liver, because sugar isn't just sugar. Table sugar and most refined carbs break down into two components, glucose and fructose. Glucose can be used by the muscles, the brain, many other tissues quickly, but fructose cannot. Fructose can only be processed by the liver. So every time you eat sugar, drink sugar, or eat refined carbs that rapidly turn into sugar, your liver has to handle that fructose load. When this happens occasionally, the liver can keep up. But when it happens all day, every day, the liver gets overloaded, and it does the only thing it can do. It converts the excess fructose into fat, and that fat gets stored inside the liver itself. This is one of the primary drivers of fatty liver, and it's happening even in people who barely drink alcohol. Now, add refined carbohydrates into the mix. Foods like white bread, pasta, bagels, muffins, pastries, crackers, crackers, chips, cereals. These foods are stripped of fiber, and without fiber, they digest really quickly. They spike blood sugar levels faster, they raise insulin higher, and they dump an even heavier fructose burden into the liver. This is very different from carbs that still contain fiber. Fiber slows down digestion. It slows sugar absorption. It lowers the insulin response, and it reduces how much stress the liver has to absorb. So you don't have to give up carbs entirely. You just want to remove the kind of carbs that overwhelm the liver when you're trying to burn fat. Fruit fits into this category too, and this is where people get confused. Fruit has a lot of nutrients, but fruit also contains fructose. And not all fruits affect the liver the same way. High fructose fruits include bananas, grapes, mangoes, oranges, pineapple. They all deliver a large fructose load really fast. When eaten frequently, they put a direct pressure on the liver and slows down fat loss. This doesn't mean they're bad foods that should never be eaten, but when you're trying to repair your liver and trying to burn fat, they absolutely slow your progress. On the other hand, low fructose fruits, many berries, Granny Smith apples, kiwis, they're much easier on blood sugar and the liver. They allow you to reduce fructose without eliminating fruit entirely. All right, let's move to the R. This is the one most people completely miss, in many cases even more damaging to your liver than sugar. The R stands for rancid oils. These are oils that have been damaged, oxidized, or chemically altered before they ever even hit your plate. And your liver treats these very differently than it treats sugar. Sugar stresses the liver in the moment, but rancid oils change how the liver functions long term. Most of these oils come from industrial seed oils. They're not gently pressed from food. They're not squeezed like an olive would be. Instead, they're extracted using high heat chemical solvents, bleaching and deodorizing. So by the time you eat them, the fat is already damaged. And when damaged fat enters your body, your liver has to treat it like a toxin. And that immediately shifts its priorities. Instead of focusing on burning fat efficiently, it has to focus on neutralizing oxidative damage. Now, one of the main fats found in these oils is something called linoleic acid. In a very small amount, linoleic acid is essential, but most people today are eating as much as 10 times more than their body was designed to handle. And unlike sugar, linoleic acid doesn't burn off quickly. It gets stored. It gets stored in your fat, it gets stored in your liver, and it gets built directly into your cell membranes. And this is where rancid oils become even more problematic than sugar. Linoleic acid has a very long half-life in the body. Research shows it can take years to leave your system. So even if you stop eating these oils today, their effects don't disappear next week. They continue affecting your liver function in the background. That's why a lot of people can clean up their diet, cut sugar, reduce carbs, reduce calories, and still feel like the weight won't move. Now, one of the biggest sources of these oils is restaurant food. Fried foods almost always cooked in industrial seed oils, and the fryer oil isn't changed after the first batch. It's reheated all day, often for days or even weeks, and each time those oils are reheated, the damage multiplies. So even meals that look healthy on the menu can deliver a heavy dose of liver-damaging fat. But restaurants aren't the only source. These are oils that are hidden in places people don't expect: packaged snacks, crackers, chips, salad dressings, sauces, condiments, protein bars, granola, roasted nuts, plant-based foods, keto foods. So as a rule of thumb, anything that lists vegetable oil, canola oil, soybean oil, corn oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil, it's got to go. Avoid them. These are some of the highest linoleic oils, and they're usually damaged before they even reach your plate. Now, on the other hand, some of the fats that behave very differently are oils like olive, avocado, coconut oil, butter. These are much more stable. They're far less prone to oxidation. They don't overload the liver with linoleic acid. But here's the important part. Once you switch to healthier fats, your liver doesn't reset overnight. Like I said, linoleic acid can stay stored in your body for years. So yes, stopping now prevents further damage, but actually clearing this fat out and rebuilding healthy liver function takes a very specific approach, which I'll share with you in just a moment. Let's go to the A, though, of the crap analogy. The next category in that crap analogy is one that surprises a lot of people because it's usually marketed as the solution, but the A stands for artificial ingredients. And I'm not going to go through all of them right here, but these are chemicals your body does not recognize as food. And when they enter your system, your liver has to treat them like toxins. That matters for fat loss because your liver has a limited detox capacity each day. It can only process so much at one time. So every time artificial ingredients come in, something else gets pushed back. That's why artificial ingredients can stall fat loss and even block fat loss with some of them. Even when calories are low, even when sugar is low, even when your macros look perfect. Now, some of the biggest offenders in this category are artificial sweeteners. They're everywhere. You've got to start looking for these. Sugar-free foods, diet foods, low-calorie drinks, protein powders, protein bars, energy drinks, flavored waters, coffee creamers, even supplements. And while all of them can cause problems, there's one you really need to watch out for, and that's sucralose. Sucralose is not just a sweetener. It's a chlorinated chemical compound. That means your body can't use it for energy like real sugar. So instead of being burned, your liver has to detox it. And here's where it becomes especially problematic. Sucralose gets priority treatment in the liver. It cuts to the front of the detox line. So while your liver is busy clearing sucralose, other toxins don't get processed. Environmental chemicals, medications, alcohol byproducts, even toxins released when you start burning fat, and all of those have to wait. And while they're waiting, the liver stays overloaded. This is one of the biggest reasons people stall after switching to diet foods. They remove sugar, but they replace it with something that keeps the liver stuck. It doesn't stop there. Artificial ingredients like sucralose also disrupt normal appetite and insulin signaling. The brain tastes sweetness, but no real fuel arrives. That mismatch confuses hunger hormones, and it can even trigger insulin release despite no sugar even being present. So the result is more cravings, more hunger, and slower fat loss. Now, aside from sucralose, here are some of the other artificial ingredients to watch out for, like aspartame, ACE-K, artificial flavors, artificial colors, food dyes, MSG, preservatives like BHT, BHA, TBHQ, and corn maltodextrin. You have to be very careful because a lot of times they can be hiding under unexpected names and you don't even recognize them. Now, the last category in the crap is the one that trips people up the most because on the surface, it looks like the healthy choice. The P stands for processed protein. Protein is essential for fat loss. It supports muscle, it stabilizes blood sugar, it helps control appetite, but protein only helps fat loss if your liver can actually use it. And that's where quality starts to matter. So just like with the other crap categories, when protein comes from heavily processed or contaminated sources, your liver has to deal with the toxins first before it can use that protein to build muscle or support the metabolism and do its job. So this is something that I emphasize all the time. You're not just what you eat, you're what your food ate. Toxins concentrate as they move up the food chain. Animals accumulate pesticides, herbicides, antibiotics, hormones, environmental chemicals. And when you eat that animal, those compounds don't just disappear, they get passed up to you straight to your liver. So even though protein itself isn't the problem, processed protein can quietly overload the liver. This is especially true with conventional and packaged meats, deli meats, bacon, sausage, jerky, packaged or pre-cooked proteins. These often contain preservatives like nitrates, nitrites. From the liver's perspective, those are toxins. They increase oxidative stress, they increase inflammation, stiffness, joint issues. They add to the same detox burden that we've already talked about. On top of that, many processed proteins are cooked in seed oils, stored with seed oils, or combined with seed oils. So now protein becomes another delivery system for linoleic acid. And that compounds the liver problem even further. Protein powders are another hidden issue. Many of them are loaded with artificial sweeteners, especially sucralose. So even though someone thinks they're helping fat loss, they're stacking two crap categories at the same time: artificial ingredients and processed proteins. And because liquid protein hits the system quickly, the liver has to deal with all of that at once. Plant-based and meat-based alternative proteins can cause similar problems. Many of them are ultra-processed, high in seed oils, high in additives, and highly refined. So the protein number on the label looks good, but the liver cost is high. Fish is another place people get tripped up. Farm-raised fish tend to accumulate more contaminants, which increases detox demand on the liver. Wild-caught fish, on the other hand, places far less stress on the liver. And once again, it comes back to the same principle. Quality determines whether proteins help or hurt fat loss. This is why simply eating more protein doesn't automatically fix the problem. You have to get rid of the processed junk that's working against you. Now, once you've gone through your diet and removed the crap, something important happens. You finally give your liver the opportunity to repair itself. And for a lot of people, that alone already makes a noticeable difference. But the next step is what really speeds things up. This is where you're done removing the interference and then you start actively supporting the liver so fat loss accelerates. This is also where many people notice that fat loss speeds up. It's not uncommon for fat loss to feel slow at first and then almost out of nowhere suddenly it picks up. It's not random, it's because your liver is no longer overwhelmed. It's no longer stuck in survival mode. It's finally doing the job at its full capacity again, especially once you start feeding it the right foods. Now, one of the first groups of liver supporting foods that I want you to focus on is cruciferous vegetables. These are vegetables that are high in fiber and sulfur compounds. Both are critical for proper liver function. Fiber slows down how quickly sugar enters your bloodstream. That helps prevent large insulin spikes after meals. And lower insulin makes it easier for your body to release stored fat. The sulfur compounds are just as important. They help the liver attach toxins to bile so that your toxins can actually leave the body. So instead of being recycled or stored in fat, they're exiting. And for anyone that's not familiar with bile, bile is a yellowish green fluid made by the liver and it's stored in the gallbladder. So you're still making it even if you don't have the gallbladder. One of its main jobs is carrying waste and toxins out of the body. Some of the best cruciferous vegetables to include broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, kale, Brussels sprouts. We have these all the time in the Livingood Livingood household. Another important group of liver supporting foods is leafy greens. They provide fiber, but they also supply key micronutrients that the liver uses during detox. Leafy greens help support the liver's main detox molecule, glutathione. It's like the street sweeper of the body. You can think of it as that. It helps neutralize toxins so they can be removed. Leafy greens also stimulate bile flow. Better bile flow helps your body digest fat instead of storing it. Some of the best forms: spinach, kale, arugula, romaine lettuce, collard greens. Speaking of bile, one of the simplest and most powerful habits you can add is drinking lemon water every single day. It's especially helpful in the morning when bile flow is sluggish after fasting overnight and not moving. Lemon water acts as a signal to the liver. It tells bile to start moving, which supports both fat digestion and toxin removal. Lemon water also contains plant compounds that provide antioxidant protection. Helps reduce the amount of damage that your liver takes while doing its job. That's only a small part of what lemon water does. I've made an entire video breaking it down and how powerful that daily habit really is, including how it supports fat loss. I'll grab a link to that and post it down below. In addition to food, there are also a few supplements I recommend if you want your liver to burn more efficiently, because detox doesn't happen in a single step. Your liver works through 3 phases to remove the toxins. And if those phases don't work well, toxins don't leave. So earlier we talked about glutathione. That's the liver's primary detox molecule. Your body doesn't absorb glutathione very well. Your body is designed to produce it. And that's why I often recommend amino acids from collagen protein, because they contain lots of cysteine, one of the main building blocks of glutathione. And the buzzword of it is N-acetylcysteine, NAC. That is a child of the parent cysteine. Milk thistle is another one I recommend. It plays a different role. It doesn't just push detox, it actually protects the liver cells from that oxidative stress. Especially while detox and fat loss are happening right at the same time, milk thistle gives that extra layer of protection. Turmeric is another important piece. It calms inflammation inside the liver. Lower inflammation improves your insulin signaling, and better insulin signaling makes it easier to release stored fat. When you combine everything that we've talked about thus far, you remove the crap, you eat liver supporting foods, and you support your detox with the right nutrients, fat loss usually starts to pick up because your liver finally has space and resources to do its job. But there's one more important exception. There's one type of fat that doesn't leave quickly, even when everything else is dialed in. Remember the rancid oils that we talked about earlier and the linoleic acid that can stay in your body for years? That one is much more stubborn, and clearing it out requires one additional step. But when you do it the right way, you don't have to wait years. You can start clearing it out in a matter of weeks. On its own, your body clears linoleic acid very slowly. That's why even people who clean up their diet perfectly can still feel stuck for a long time. They're no longer adding the problem, but the problem is still there. The good news is there's a way to speed that process up dramatically, and it doesn't require extreme dieting. It doesn't require starving yourself. It just comes down to using the right type of fat at the right time while giving your body a break from constant digestion. And this is where omega-3s come in. More specifically, a form of omega-3 called EPA. EPA is fat your body uses to build cells with. Every cell in your body has an outer layer made of fat, including your liver cells. And when EPA is available consistently, your body starts choosing it as its building material to build the little houses of your body. Here's the part most people miss. Your body won't just replace damaged fat on its own. Stored linoleic acid doesn't just magically disappear. You have to create the condition that forces it out. And that's where fasting comes in. When you fast, even briefly, your body has to pull energy from stored fat. That includes the fat where linoleic acid has been hiding. And when fat is released, something important happens. If EPA is available at that moment, your body uses it to rebuild cell membranes with healthier fat. Instead of recycling the same damaged fat over and over, also called the rebounding effect, this combination has actually been studied. Researchers looked at what happened when people combine the EPA supplementation with short controlled fasting, not extreme fasting, just brief intentional fasts. And what they found was striking. In just 13 days, linoleic acid levels in cell membranes dropped by 24%. Think about that. This is a type of fat that normally takes years to leave the body, and it dropped by nearly a quarter in under 2 weeks. That didn't happen with omega-3s alone, and it didn't happen with fasting alone. It only happened when the two of them were used together. And this is the missing piece for a lot of people. Once this fat starts clearing out and the liver finally stops fighting in the background, it's no longer stuck compensating for damage. And when that happens, fat loss stops feeling like a constant struggle, and it starts working the way that it should be. Your body's working efficiently. There's a lot more to this that we haven't covered so far. So if you want everything laid out step by step, without guessing, without trying to piece it together on your own, that's exactly what I want to show you next. I've taken everything you just learned about your liver, fat loss, the foods, the supplementation, documentation to support both. I packaged it into a simple step-by-step system, so you don't have to piece this together on your own. It's all inside my brand new Livingood approved book. I break down what happens to the liver, what hurts it, how you can optimize it to burn fat quickly, and to walk you through. If you're serious about finally fixing the system that controls fat loss, this is where to start. Now, fixing your liver, cleaning up your food is the foundation, like I just said. If you really want to lose fat fast, there's one more piece you can't ignore. You still have to move your body, not for hours a day and not with long, exhausting cardio sessions. In fact, that kind of exercise can often backfire, especially as you get older. What matters is sending the right signal to your body, the signal that tells it to burn fat, protect muscle, keep your metabolism working for you. And you can do that in as little as 10 minutes a day. In my next video, I will show you the exact high intensity exercises that burn fat on a completely different level, especially if you're over the age of 50. No equipment, no running, no risk of injury, just a simple, proven way to get the fat burning benefits your body needs without spending hours working out. I'll include a link to that video right here. Click to watch it next, and I will see you there.